Hi, we're going to go ahead and get started. This microphone here does not actually do anything for you all in the crowd, so I apologize for that. We have to hold it for the recording that's happening. But we are here from Olathe, and so I have a team from Westview Elementary here, and we also have our middle school, Santa Fe Trail Middle School, that's here with us. And we're going to present for a little bit about what we're doing with school redesign. We also have some district administration here. We have Dr. Yeager, Dr. Dane, and Dr. McMullen back here from our district, and they're in charge of teaching and learning, elementary and secondary education and all that. So if you have questions afterward district level wise, you can talk to them, but if it's building level wise, we'd be happy to discuss with you the things that we're doing. But we're here from Olathe, and our Westview team is going to present first about the things that are happening at our elementary school, and then we're going to turn it over to our friends at SFT to share about what they're doing at the middle school level. Westview Elementary is a school of 240 students in Olathe. We have 29 full-time teachers. We have about 77% of our students that are free and reduced lunch, and 50% of our students are active ELL students. And so when we got into this whole redesign, we found out about this opportunity. We went back to our mission statement that we had created a couple years ago, and that was to prepare a diverse community for lifelong success. And so when we started thinking about, is this something we want to jump into? Is it an opportunity that we want to take advantage of? We went back to that, and what we have noticed over time is that the things that we have been doing for our kids have not been working for our kids. As they leave Westview in 5th grade, they were not prepared to go to middle school and high school and in post-secondary success. And so when we saw this opportunity, we jumped right on because we were like, we got to try something different because what we have been doing hasn't been working. And so we spent a lot of time working with our community, with our staff, with our students, with our parents, working on developing our vision for what this redesign should look like. And the logo that you see here is what we came up with. That at Westview, we really want to inspire our students. We want to cultivate their learning, and we also want them to create and be proud of the things that they create and share it with the world. And so that was a lot of the work we did last semester, was coming up with kind of what's our vision for this, what's our goal, and from that point forward, then we started creating a plan for what we wanted that to actually look like. And so now I'm going to turn it over. This is I didn't introduce my teachers from Westview, but I have Miss Kilby here. She's a 4th grade teacher. I have Miss Bartek, who's a 2nd grade teacher. I have Brianna Salazar, who's an ELL teacher, and then Brandy Michaelis, who's one of our IRTs, and an IRT is an instructional resource teacher. They support several buildings in the district with new teachers, with professional development, and also at the building level, supporting in PLCs and those types of things also. So they're going to help with me presenting today.
As he said, my name is Jessica Kilby, and I teach 4th grade at Westview. And part of our earlier process was collecting data from our school. We wanted to talk to our parents, our students, and our teachers, so we had multiple stakeholders' opinions as we went about this process. Some of the sample questions we asked, we talked to every parent that we could reach at our school by going out in the car line after school and also the walkers. And we talked to parents about what skills is it that you would like your child to have when they graduate, and also what are your dreams and goals for your student. We also asked the students, what do you not like about school? And this question was one we had to revise. Our original question was, what would your dream school be like? And for our students and the population we have, a lot of our kids had not had that opportunity to really dream before. And so that was a really hard question, and we had to revise it to, what do you not like about school, to kind of get those opinions from them. And then for the teachers, we asked all of our staff members, both certified and classified. We said, if we could do school however we wanted, what would it look like? And so we took all of those different data pieces and we actually compiled them, all of those data pieces into silos. And then we took those silos and we ranked them so that we could see what our priorities were. And after we ranked them, they fell into these 4 main areas or focus areas for our school. And those areas are personalized learning, project-based learning, social emotional learning, and community. And over these next couple of slides, we'll talk about each one of those focus areas and then also share what it is that we've been piloting for this semester and then what we're planning to do when we fully implement next year.
So the first area that we chose to focus on was personalized learning. And with personalized learning, we focus on giving students as much voice and choice throughout their day, increasing their movement throughout the day, continuing to have some small grouping, some learner profiles, and goal setting. And what that looks like now And our current pilot is that we've combined our 4th and 5th grade students, so that we have about 80 students that we've combined, and they meet in a den area. During the morning time, they also get a reading and math personalized learning group that's based off the standards that they need. And then we have a dedicated SPED and ELL teacher to our combined grade level to really focus on provide those needs. And then we have flexible seating in our den area where the students meet. We, once again, making sure they have the voice and choice in that den space. They have the flexible seating that they can move between the room. And then we've also, to increase their movement throughout the day, we've implemented 4 15-minute recesses that helps break up that instruction. What our hopes to do for the next year during our full implementation is combine K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. We will be implementing teacher learner profiles. That way students, all their information that will help teachers make their groups, but also know their students and build those relationships. The teachers will have access to that. And then students will have learner profiles that they use, that they will carry along with them, that will have their goals that they're working on, their SEL goals they're working on, their hopes and dreams, their intrinsic motivation desires. And then we hope to have a dedicated SPED and ELL and title teacher. And then we are hoping to have some more flexible learning spaces within our den area.
Project-based learning was our next silo, or our next main focus area for us, and this was an area that a lot of us were really excited to learn more about. You can see up here, those are the essential components of project-based learning, and those are the things that we want to make sure that we are including when we're teaching our students. So for this current pilot, for this spring semester, as Brianna said, 4th and 5th grade are piloting a lot of different things, and so right now, when they're in those personalized groups in the mornings, we have a 45-minute time slot where we're able to teach our whole 4th and 5th grade. We break them out into a couple classrooms in mixed groups, and we're able to do our mini lessons and really focus on our PBL during that time. And then when the students are not in their personalized group and they're not in that 45-minute time slot, they have individual work time that they're able to use for their individual accountability component, and that's what they're doing or working on during that time. Kindergarten through 3rd grade is also dabbling with PBL this semester, and we actually have a learning showcase in April, and during that time we'll have the whole school, all of our students be able to share what they've been learning and working on, and we'll be inviting in our community members, our parents, and our district personnel as well. Next year, we plan to continue this process and have K through 5 fully implement and use PBL. We have a training in Wichita in May where a few of our staff members will be going to. It's hosted by the Buck Institute, which is the gold standard of PBL, and we're really excited to just get to bring some of that knowledge back to our school and to our district as well. And then, of course, we're wanting to really focus on involving our business community. In our current PBL right now that 4th and 5th grade has been working on, we've already been able to bring in our district planner and our city planner, and we are working on also setting up for our next PBL, working on setting up some visits with our local news station so that our kids will be able to see a little bit more about what the business community does and that expertise that they have.
Okay, the third silo is social emotional learning. And when we looked at our data, we saw and found that it was a huge piece that was missing in our school community. And so when we got a team together that focused on the social emotional learning part, we really felt that it needed to be a piece that was interwoven throughout our whole entire day. So our goals are social and self-awareness, relationship skills, self-management, responsible decision-making, and this year, since January, our 4th and 5th grade, or actually the whole entire school, is piloting a community breakfast, and that looks like that every certified staff member in our school has a group of 8 to 9 students that range from kindergarten to 5th grade, and they sit in circles, and they eat their breakfast together, and teachers sit and they talk about, like, how was your evening, or what did you do over the weekend? And we teach kids to interact with each other and also engage in conversation in those ways. Our 4th and 5th grade, they're currently piloting check-ins at lunch. So they eat, is it 45 minutes? 45-minute lunch period where they eat all together in the dens that they're in with the teachers. And that, again, that's just like conversational piece where they are interacting with each other and talking about what's going well, what's not going well, things like that. We've implemented Second Step. Our district adopted that this year, and so our teachers went through some training at the beginning of the school year, and we've been using that as our SEL piece. And then we have extra counselor time. So our counselor that we have now, she was doing guidance time every other week, and now she's moved into specials for 4th and 5th grade, where she teaches guidance as a special, and they're getting it every week. Just as you would like your PE and music, stuff like that. So full implementation next year will hopefully look like, again, the check-in and check-out. This year we're not doing the check-out just because of how schedules were kind of working out. But again, the check-in is kind of like the community breakfast. And then that's where we involve those learner profiles where the students kind of set goals and they talk with their community teacher. And then again at checkout, they will leave us or check out with us before they leave us for the day. We are adding an additional counselor to our school, so not only will we have the one doing what she's doing, we'll have an additional one doing the same thing, and that's going to look like they are in the dens when the kids are in the dens next year, and we've implemented K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. Counselors are pushing into the dens and helping them solve those with those problem-solving skills and those collaboration skills, things like that, as well as we will be doing like group individual counseling and group counseling with them as well. Let's see. Leadership time, that at the end of the day, we are planning on doing like where kids can choose different ways to find leadership within the school community. So like, say for example, getting the garden going outside and helping out in the garden, or having a group that does, having a group that will do like our announcements. We've kind of started that this year. So a group that does like our announcements every morning. And then also community assemblies. So it's kind of a way to build in some extra collaboration time for our teachers. So our plan is that our 2 guidance counselors will take the community and do these assemblies in the morning, and in hopes to having the kids kind of lead that and kick that off. But it's just a way for all of us to come together and value community at our school. So.
I was fortunate enough to teach kindergarten at Westview for 8 years, so this school is near and dear to my heart, and it's been so fun to get to come back and work with this team on this redesign project. I have been working with a community group, and we have so many ideas. It's going to take us many years to roll all these out. Our wheels are turning and you can't make us stop. So some things we really are working on is that birth to age 5 gap. What do we do for those students that we haven't met, but we know will come to us eventually? Kindergarten readiness, as a former kindergarten teacher, I can speak to that. We know that there are gaps between the knowledge that students come to us with, and we want to work on closing those. We know we have so many local business connections in Olathe, and we want to start involving those in our project-based learning. And we know that we can also they just have other great resources that we can offer our families. We are really interested in doing home visits. And then we have talked a lot about having some on-site community resources so that we feel more like a community hub and not just a school, that parents really can start to feel comfortable with our school, and it can be a resource for teachers, families, students, and everyone. So a few things we are doing with our current pilot is that we have our learning showcase that, as you mentioned, with PBL, that will be in April, and we'll really look to open the doors and let some of our, the neighborhood know, what are we doing? What is this thing called Redesign? We really want to bring families in, community members in, and get them on our side and let them start understanding this process we're walking through. Home visits, we are going to start. We're going to train our staff here in the next few weeks, and they are invited to go do home visits with some families. Our goal for future would be that all students are getting visited 1 or 2 times during the school year. We have really wonderful families at Westview, and the great thing about them is they bring their kids to school, drop them off, and say, we totally trust you. And we love that, but we know it could be so much more. We really want that relationship where they drop them off, and then they come in, and they visit, and they help up. And we have, leaders that are being raised up with the parents that we have in our school. So we know that we can make that a stronger connection. And then, like I mentioned, we have current connections with local businesses. Next year, like I mentioned, we'll increase our home visits. We have an early childhood program currently at Westview, but it is serving our SPED population with peer mentors, and so most of those students do not actually attend our school. They go back to their home schools. And that is a great program that we need to happen, but we know with the families that we have at Westview, we also need to work on bringing early childhood for Westview students who are going to stay at Westview. So that's something that's a multi-year process we're gonna work at growing in our school. We're gonna continue to connect with those businesses. We know that we have, again, like I mentioned, some really strong parents in our school, but we just haven't found the right leadership opportunities for them yet. And so we really want to work with that. Like we mentioned earlier, we have a large Hispanic population, and that traditional parent-teacher organization doesn't really fit their needs maybe. So we really just want to see what our parents need, what can we do for them, and then move them forward.
All right, as we've gone through this whole process, one of the most impactful things that we were able to do is to go visit some other schools. And so throughout this past semester and a little bit into this year, we've done several visits. We visited Epic Elementary in Liberty, Missouri. We went to Apache Elementary in Shawnee Mission, and they're here with us today. We went to 2 Rivers. We went to 3 different schools in Washington, D.C. 2 Rivers was probably the one that stood out the most, that had some really neat things with project-based learning and SEL that we were able to see. And then we also attended a conference out in Little Rock, Arkansas, that had a whole bunch of presenters from around the country that had been redesigning schools and learned lots of different things and made some connections with different schools there. And as we went through that process, our whole goal was not to say, oh, we want to copy what this school's doing or this school's doing. It was really to say, okay, we know what Westview has and what we need, and what can we, what ideas can we borrow and steal from other people to make a good plan for our school here. And we got some really neat ideas, like the whole combined 4th and 5th grade level den was an idea that we saw at one place, and we started really digging into that, and we love it because it provides a chance for looping, but you're not losing all your kids all at once. You kind of switch out 50% of your kids each year. You can build that mentoring and leadership with students. And so we got lots of really neat ideas from our school visits, and I would recommend, if you're going to do anything with redesigning your school, to go look at what other schools are doing and see what best practice is out there. But that was really powerful for our team. Next steps in everything that we're doing, we're going to continue to collect data. We say that we're still in the pilot, but we're getting to that point where the pilot's just about done, and we need to start coming up with that plan for next year, that comprehensive whole school plan. A lot of the things we were able to pilot this year were great, but we weren't able to do everything we wanted to do because of staffing and schedules and all those different pieces. And so what do we really want this to look like next year? We're going to analyze the data that we have. We continually are surveying our kids and our parents and our staff to see how things are going. We're looking at the academic progress also and making sure that kids are still getting the support that they need to be successful. But as we're going to do those things, and then we're going to start finalizing that plan for next year. Professional learning has been a huge component of this. We keep finding that we don't have enough time. I've never had my PD schedule so packed where I can't give a half hour here or a half hour there for a collaboration. It's all, this is new information that you have to have right now. And so we're really trying to be creative with how does that professional learning work so that teachers aren't getting overwhelmed, and we're doing it in a strategic way so that they have the skills they need to be successful with all these new things that we're trying, because it is a lot. And if you ask these guys up here, there are some really good days, and those days that are a little more tricky and challenging, and they're doing great working through it. But we want, as we move forward, to keep giving more time and capacity for people to be successful with what we're doing. A couple of last things. If you aren't following us on Twitter, go ahead and do that at Westview Elementary, ELEM. And we're trying to post our journey through this redesign process. And we're happy to, that's been a great way for us to collaborate with others. So follow us and let me know if you want us to follow you, because we love getting information from other schools. And then we have a few minutes here before we turn it over to SFT if anybody has questions about any of the things that we've done so far this year. Yeah. I know we kind of breezed through all that. I'm sorry. So our students come in at 8 o'clock. They used to come in at 8:10. School starts at 8:20. But our kids, we have a line out the door at 8 o'clock. And so we've started opening up our building at 8 o'clock, and they go straight to their community breakfast leaders. So Megan has a class in her room. She has kindergartners, first graders, second graders, all the way up to fifth grade. And she has 8 students, and they sit in a circle around a table. Some of the rooms have, picnic blankets on the floor. Some of them have placemats for the students. Everybody kind of has figured out a different way to do that. But they sit as a family, and they eat breakfast as a family, which is something that a lot of our kids don't get a chance to do. I know I'm busy and I don't always get a chance to do it with my family either, but I love that the kids are starting their day each day with a group of people that they trust and can talk to. And they do work on those social emotional components. They are making sure they're starting their day off right, because a lot of our kids have some crummy things happening at home or different stresses in their life. And when they come to school, they're not quite 100% ready to learn. And so this gives them a chance to kind of get their day started off right in a positive way. They're not getting right into academics. They're not getting right with that teacher that they had a conflict with yesterday. It's a safe face that they're starting their day with, and someone they know they can trust, and it really gets them going. And at about 8:30, we send them back to their class. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes to transition back to class as a whole school. The kindergartners are able to walk across the building by themselves, not in a line. It's fantastic. And then we get started with our day. We've noticed already that there are fewer tardies. The line of cars used to kind of be spread out between 8 o'clock and 8:20. Now there's a whole lot of cars there from 8 to 8:10, and then it kind of dies down after that because kids really want to get to school early. And a lot of it, we still have those parents that elementary kids are not really the ones that are responsible for whether or not they're on time. It's the parents that are, but we can tell they're pushing their parents to get them there earlier so they can be there for that breakfast and that community time. So that's a really neat part of our day. Of all the things we've piloted so far, that has probably been our most successful. We didn't have to tweak or change too much from the get-go. A lot of our other things, we're always changing and trying to find different ways to do it. But yep, go ahead. So we have in the past, we have a high enough free and reduced population that every single student at our school gets breakfast for free every morning. My students attend there and they get breakfast every morning at the school. And so we were already eating breakfast in the classrooms. It was just kind of a, as they came in kind of thing. And this has been, now it's just a little more strategic with how we're using that time. And she wanted to add something about breakfast.
I just wanted to add, and just so you know, that these groups are fluid all the way through elementary school, so they don't change. So the group that Jessica has, when the kid enters kindergarten, if that kiddo is in her group, that kiddo's in her group until he or she leaves us in 5th grade. So they don't change from year to year. That just stays the same. Yeah. So.
Yep. And so with our 4th and 5th grade pilot, that's where the most significant changes have been with this. And our 5th grade group is our biggest group in the building. It's a group that we have a lot of IEPs in that group, a lot of behavior challenges in that group. It's a group that since I've been there when they were in 1st grade, it's been that group that we've always watched and has been challenging. And so the day that we started our pilot, I used to get walkie-talkie calls multiple times a day saying we need support in this classroom and those types of things. And from the day that we started the pilot, those walkie-talkie calls have been greatly minimized. A lot of it's that voice and choice in their learning. The kids feel like they have a say. One student that last semester was very down on school. She did not want to be there. I think a lot of those behaviors were intimidating to her and things like that. She told me about a week into the pilot, I've never had so much fun at school before. And so that was really empowering to say, hey, we're on the right track. Things are not perfect yet, but we're on the right track and we're going to get there. And so we've had a lot of of positive successes like that. Now, every day is not perfect, and I know that we still have students that have those struggles and things, but I also feel like we have 5 classroom teachers, an ELL teacher, and a resource teacher. They're all in this team together, and they're able to problem solve these challenges together rather than it being, the ELL teachers dealing with this here, and the SPED teachers dealing with this here, and the classroom teachers dealing with this here, and it's all in isolation. But now we're kind of working together to problem solve this on a daily basis. They have an hour of plan time all together every day, and that is a huge power because now the programs are not so isolated from each other, and what one teacher's doing that's working, they can share with those other teachers that are working with that student also on a daily basis, and that's been really beneficial for us. So like for the project-based learning that the 4th and 5th graders just completed, the first day they said, okay, you guys are gonna make your groups. Here are the stipulations. You have to have at least one 4th grader on your team. You have to have at least one 5th grader on your team. And they also had to have common time. They all have different schedules, so they had to have some common time to collaborate together. And that was the only stipulations that we gave them. We had one group that was all family members, all cousins that were in a group together. We had one group that was it was 4 boys, and they were those troublemaker boys that are always causing the problems that they all picked to be in a group together. And so they had complete choice in it. It was really funny. Last Thursday, they did their presentations, they finished up their project, and then on Friday, they did some reflection. And I got to sit in and listen to the reflection that the kids had. And that group of 4 boys, they all 4 said, next time I shouldn't pick my friends, I should pick people that are actually gonna pull their weight. And the group, and the group of siblings, they said, it's really hard to go home and be with those same people all day, every day. So next time I'm gonna pick people that aren't in my family necessarily. I'm gonna pick some other people that I'm not around so much. And so just some of the reflection that the kids had was really powerful, but it wasn't us saying, this is how you should make a group and this is who you should work with. It was really us saying, you guys get to pick, and then now let's reflect, how did that go when you picked, and what are you going to do next time differently? So they really did have choice in it. Eventually, we'd like to get to where everybody's presenting their information in different ways. I think this time we gave a little more guidance just because our 5th graders and our 4th graders have been so trained since kindergarten to do exactly what the teacher says. It's a big shift for them just as much as it is for the teachers. And so we have to kind of scaffold that a little bit, give them, it's a progression. And so we've kind of gradually released that responsibility to the kids. And as we do more projects and we do more learning like this, I think our kids will get more comfortable with it. I'm going to hold off any more questions now because I want to make sure SFT has time to share all their information. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you, sir.
So we got to follow Westview at the board meeting last time too that we had. So, and we get to follow them again, and they do such a great job. But we're going to go forward. We wanted to put this slide up right away. My name is JJ Leibel. I'm the proud principal at SFT. We wanted to get this slide up in case. So we have a Today's Meet going in the background, which is, if you haven't used it, it's kind of a back channel discussion. And what we're going to try to do is answer as many of those questions real time as we can. And then that chat room is basically open, I think, for a week. So for sure, the time that we're at the conference, if you keep posting to that, we'll keep trying to answer those questions, okay? So that's up there for you as well. Once again, my name is JJ Leibel. I'm the principal at SFT. And I have with me Dr. Caleb Stoppel. He's an assistant principal. Mary Young, who teaches 7th grade math, and she's a member of our Redesign team, as is Caleb. And we have Josh Stock, who is a 6th grade language arts teacher as well. So they're with us today. Just a little bit about SFT. We are about middle of the road as far as population goes in Olathe. We have 735 students and 115 staff members. We're about 50% free and reduced lunch, so that's a combination of our free and reduced numbers. That number has actually come down a little bit from what it was last year. Last year we were about 56% free and reduced lunch. But one thing that I've noticed as our free and reduced numbers are starting to come down, the numbers of homeless students are increasing. We are getting about a McKinney-Vento student about one every 2 weeks or so. So those numbers are rising as that number's coming down. We do have about 30% of our students that are classified as English language learners, and we have a full ELL program. One thing that I didn't put up here that's a little bit unique about SFT as well is that we have about 100 students that transfer in and out of the school within the course of a year. So we're a very transient school. We have a lot of turnover. We're seeing a lot of families that double up, triple up, and that type of thing, and we're getting a lot of new students from that as well. So you've already seen this. Brad went over it in the session before we got in here, the morning session, but this is just kind of, a little bit of the plan where we were at. This was phase one of the launch point of the launch pad. From August, September, October, and November is when we were building that, and we were really working on our shared vision. We spent a lot of time with our shared vision, and Dr. Stoppel will talk a lot about that, but we really felt like we needed to get that right, that we had to have something that we could anchor back to, and so I'll let Caleb talk about that.
All right, I know a lot of you are here to probably, hear about what we are doing, but I think it's important to embrace the process, especially during those first two phases, because that's the really challenging part. That's the part that, you're gonna love and hate at the same time, coming back to the question of, let's talk about our why, even though you wanna talk about the how and the what. Excuse me. And so often, especially during that first phase, really at simplest form, it was 4 months to come up with this mission statement. It was 4 months to be able to have great momentum and great excitement and passion, all to kind of come back to a Friday meeting that we weekly had to scratch our heads and say, where are we at, guys? And so it is very much an ebb and flow process, and so I do want to bring some attention to that. But we are very proud of, the simple but very deep statement that we have, that we are empowering all learners to explore. And, you can kind of see some of our key points there, but there is something that we looked into that looked past engagement versus empowerment, and how, we're starting to look at our students more as learners and not just students. So who do we want to be in control of the learning in our classroom? And that has really driven a lot of our paradigm shift in our school, even to our classroom teachers, to say, well, who is kind of in charge of the content and the learning in here? And that's a very difficult shift, as I talked about the learners. And then, learners not stopping at just the students, really making sure that staff know they are an important part of that process, and they too are not only allowed, but asked to be learners themselves. If we all knew how to do this, we would have already done it. And that's something that, probably rang true with all of us when, Randy said that initially. And then finally, with exploration, you'll hear a lot about what we have done to embrace exploration and discovery, to value student choice, but also to value taking risks and taking risks into the unknown. From our work in that first phase, we did jump into being able to identify our 3 pillars, which it's been fascinating to know, and as I further connect with other Mercury schools, to hear some similarities. An SEL direction, an academic direction, and a civic engagement direction. And so these words that come underneath of here was also more work done in that 4-month period that was painstaking, because we only get a series of words out of there, but that was a product of much bigger lists of words of what it means to be Santa Fe Trail, and what we want of our learners, and what we want their experience to be, whittled down to, guys, this is our foundation, this is our passion, this is what will keep us driving forward as educators, to be able to instill in our learners as well. So then on to phase 2, this is when we kind of start getting a little bit more of the what, which is exciting. We started our investigative teams. I know some, we took a kind of turn to kind of make that our own. Some may call them research teams, some may call them even something else, but what are you going to do with your team to dive into what you are going to do? Which is why I will echo, it's not just looking at what others have done and fully reproduce it. Now, there's a lot of value in seeing what others are doing. It goes back to, there's not much sense of totally reinventing the wheel or not, but make it your own, as well as you need to know what's out there. And so investigative teams, we had 9 to 10 to even 11 staff members on each of those 3 pillars, ranging from classified staff. We had some paraprofessionals that were interested in this process, as well as our counselors, and then mostly of teachers. And we allowed these, we structured these teams to meet for about 3 hours on 2 separate days to be able to have time during the day to research and to investigate. And that was something that we were able to manage with kind of bulk sub coverage within the building on those days. All right, I'll turn it over next. You're talking about SEL?
Yeah. All right, so one of the biggest changes and one of the first pilots we really dove into as an entire staff was this idea of Cyclone Startup and Cyclone Wrap-Up. Basically, we wanted to bookend the students' school day with, again, kind of like Westview's doing, with a small group of students, 10 to 15 students, who you can really connect with. So we started with a soft start to their day. So the first 15 minutes of the day was a chance for them to, we do something called second chance breakfast. So we offer a breakfast option before school, but we will also have a grab and go option in the morning. And so this gave the students an opportunity to go grab that breakfast, meet with their other students, and kind of get that weekly check-in. We did a lot of goal setting during that time, and that was really interesting to see when you talk to the students when we first started out, the types of goals they were coming up with. They weren't the greatest first starting out, but as we started to develop what does a good goal look like, they really started to develop some better goals, both academic and social emotional, and it really hit a lot of different pillars at one time. It was also a good chance to mentor with those students, and then we decided to wrap up with that same group of students at the end of the day, and that was great too, because when they would set goals, they could set a daily goal, and then at the end of the day you could check in and see, well, did you meet your goal, why or why not? And it was a really great opportunity to have a positive start to the day and a positive end to the day. We also do the second step program, and then did you want to talk about Panorama a little bit? Okay.
So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Second Step program. See some people nodding their heads. So one of the great things, and we have just started to get into this, is that it will provide data on every student in the building on social emotional learning. So you can kind of see how resilient that student is, how much grit they have. And it's interesting because now we can go in and you know, some of it, it makes sense. We look at that particular kid and say, oh, well, that makes sense. You know, we have a trauma ED program in our building. So we have the ED program, but then we'll also have that trauma ED program as well. And so what makes sense is we start looking at those students, well, yeah, their self-esteem is not real high. But it's amazing to look at some other kids as well and learn a little bit more about them. And then we can get building data as well to say, okay, how is our entire building doing with self-regulation? We're just really just touching the surface of that right now, but really going to use that to kind of build our SEL platform as we move forward.
All right, and then one of the biggest things we've done is we've made sure that every decision we make, we're reflective about it. So we always have some sort of survey or some sort of data that we can gather to see if it's really having the impact that we think it is. And so based on our data, we did this Cyclone Startup and Wrap Up for about 2 weeks. Actually, it ended up being 3 weeks because of different days off and different things that came up. And 90% of the students either had a positive impact on their day or felt that it was just a neutral start to their day. So that we felt like that was a really good indicator that this is something that we definitely want to stick with into next year. For me, the biggest impact was the tardies to their first hour class, that academic time, decreased by 83%. So when the students are in the classroom, they're actually there to get that academic piece. So that gave them a soft opportunity to make sure that when that academic piece hit, they were ready to go. And approximately 90% of the teachers who participated in the pilot reported that they were able to mentor a different student each day. And so it was a really great impact overall. We also, based on those surveys, we know some things that we're going to change for next year as far as time goes. But again, just constantly being reflective about what we want to do. All right, and academic.
On that last piece, we did see, speaking from an office point of view, we did see a very drastic drop in our referrals. And so likewise with kids coming to class on time, I think we tracked, I think it was the first month roughly, and we had close to 1,700 tardies to first hour, and something just very astronomical that we look back. by implementing this, now it makes sense we're giving them a period of time to get to school now, but we saw across the board kids were getting to class on time. Because of this structure, people are talking schedules and thinking logistics of that. It did kind of carve down their class times a little bit, as well as their passing times. We went from 5 minutes to 4 minutes, and again, of a school of 730, pretty big school, and we're a pod style. I got lost for like my first 6 months there. Kids were booking it from class to class. They didn't exactly like it, but they were getting there on time. When we went out of this pilot, they almost felt like they had too much time. So that was a nice response from there as well. Mary, you want to do academic?
So I'm one of the teachers who's on the academic investigation team. So as we kind of looked through some of the data, as we looked through some of the data that we got from a lot of our students as well as our teachers in the community, we decided to actually do several different pilots. We also included project-based learning in our through Redesign disciplinary literacy. So we have a disciplinary literacy class specifically just for the different disciplines of reading, and that class is actually now solely just project-based learning. And so all those teachers actually went and got trained on project-based learning. And so the kids are pretty much all, like 90% of our students are gonna get project-based learning every single day through that class. We have also been looking at alternative schedules. One of the schedules that we've been really looking at is flex time. We have a very, very low population in terms of academics. And so one of the things that we were very concerned about and wanted to make sure that we included was in intervention time. And so the pilot that we're actually going to do fell really nicely within our assessment schedule. So we do block scheduling for assessments. And so we're able to now like kind of fit a 80-minute block in the middle of the day. Probably won't be 80 minutes next year, but an 80-minute block right now in the middle of the day where we can actually pilot how to actually, do effective MTSS and RTI time. Another thing that we've been looking at is how do we actually make or help our teachers collaborate better together. And we've actually been looking, and the district has been looking at ELL co-teaching as well as SPED co-teaching. We don't do it well, and I think a lot of you guys who do co-teaching in your buildings know that co-teaching is hard, and it's not easy, and a lot of people don't like to do it well because it takes time and a lot of collaboration. And so really making sure that we are strategic about it is going to be very important for us. And then another thing that our administrators have been really great about is professional development on demand. Just what do we need? And also providing it like, maybe through other venues, like online or those types of things. Oh, sure.
To note on this flex time, because that's something I know probably on a lot of minds, and I saw in the previous session there was a question about flex mod. One of the opportunities of schools to visit was Mill Creek Middle School in the Nashville area, and we went out there to spend a day with them and truly look at their flex mod scheduling, which was very impressive. An example, though, of taking something that works great over there and trying to see how that might work in your realm, flex mod was not exactly going to line up with what our vision was. But what we have been chewing on, because this is the pilot and we're still making adjustments, is to essentially, we have found that intervention is going to be key with our students. First with social emotional, second with academics. And so we found that startup and wrap up times on the day, we're hoping, and data is showing, that is meeting the needs of intervention on a social emotional level with our students. We still had to ask ourselves, what about academics? For that math teacher, what about that time for that kid to come in because they're not coming in before and after school and they need to make up a test? A science teacher, when are they coming in to make up that lab? And so we said, why can't we carve out 40 minutes right in the middle of the school day, every day, for kids to get targeted intervention, but also have an opportunity for exploration? We can talk about that a little bit more, perhaps, But basically, our student choice comes back in here. Teachers have the ability to say, hey, Johnny, you're missing some assignments, or I need you to make up that test. I'm going to require you to go to Mrs. Young's boost class or something. They're going to enrich you and do some intervention. You're required to go there. Otherwise, everyone, here's some options. And, we're talking about curriculum that's not tied to our curriculum, but it's also teacher-led to say, what do you want to offer? Kids, what are you excited about? We're going to talk about some explorations opportunities here, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about that flex time.
The third pillar that we created within our in our redesign committee, was the civic engagement pillar, and we felt like this was really important, getting our kids out into the community, and especially to help them prepare for their future. So one of the programs that we actually started doing, or actually I believe it is starting next Exploration Day, one of our teachers has actually taken on the project of RSVP, which is Raising Student Voice and Participation. Basically, it's a student council. And we have not had a student council at SFT before, but we really want the students to be able to have a voice and have a stake in their learning as well as what happens in their building. And so through the RSVP program, we're hoping to increase that. The other thing that we've done, and actually it's one of my partner teachers, Pinky, who's actually doing job shadowing. She's doing the pilot currently. One of the things that we noticed is that at the Olathe High Schools, they have 21st century programs. And the 21st century programs basically are just, like, for example, if a student wants to be a veterinarian, they can go into this 21st century program, and it's very focused on what you need to be able to do to become a veterinarian. And so they have different 21st century programs, but we realized that some of our 8th graders were not prepared to make that choice by like January. I think that's when they have to make that choice, is January. And so Pinky actually got really excited at the last KSDE conference about job shadowing and what can we do to better prepare. And so right now we're actually looking at, in team determination, our team, we're looking at the 7th grade students and how can we get them prepared? How can we prepare them? And so she's doing a job shadowing in conjunction with individual plans of study, as well as career cruising, to kind of see if that's something that we'd be willing to do not only in 7th grade, but then hopefully eventually maybe in 6th grade as well. And then the other, I'm going to talk about School of Service first, actually. So last year, our building leadership team actually decided that we wanted to be a school of service. That's just something at SFT that we really wanted to accomplish as a building. We wanted to make sure that we were going out into our community and serving as much as possible. So that's been something that's really nice that we've actually been able to do with this redesign, is actually include service projects throughout the day, as well as in those cyclone startup and wrap-up times. And another way that we've actually been able to incorporate that is through our exploration days. And exploration days, you've probably noticed they've been on all of our pillar slides, because we found out as we started collaborating that exploration days pretty much fit every one of our pillars and really hit everything that we wanted to accomplish. So to kind of talk a little bit about exploration day, we did 2 pilots, actually. Well, we did one. We're going to do another one March 9th. It's an entire day where the students get to basically pick how their day looks. So you guys can actually see, here's our schedule, and it's 2-hour blocks of time where they just get to be immersed in not only project-based learning, but in our School of Service, as well as academics, because that was kind of the requirement of, if you're going to teach an orbit, that's what we call them, is orbits, and if you're going to teach an orbit, it needs to encompass all of these things that we want, that will help our students be more prepared for the future. And then the teachers, that actually is a great option for the teachers to get more professional learning and more collaboration with each other, because we only have to teach 2 out of the 3 orbits, and then the other orbit we get collaboration time. I know we're running short on time. So just to kind of give you guys kind of an idea, one of the ones that actually turned out extremely well was building dog houses. So and they actually look really, really good. I went and saw them. And so another one that the kids have been able to do is a field trip, actually going out into the community and seeing what happens, like literally from where does water go and how is it like reprocessed and those types of things, from toilet to tap and those types of things. I know personally I did a Cyclone TV, so we actually were able to go visit the local news station, and then next orbit we are actually going to be creating our own Cyclone TV that hopefully next year, so like for announcements and those types of things that are happening in the building, and hopefully that will be continued through next year. Do you want to talk a little bit?
All right, yeah, so my orbit was I did 3D Minecraft animation, and I also did makey boards. And that was fun for me as an English teacher to get to do some of the tech stuff that I enjoy. And what I loved about it was I had students from all ability level, all the way from center-based resource. I had kids in the Quest or Gifted program. I had kids everywhere on the spectrum in that class, and they were all participating at their ability level, which was a great thing to see, is just being so inclusive of everyone in that process. Again, we wanted that reflective piece. So, yeah, there we go.
You want to talk about phase 3 now?
I don't know if you got a chance to see some of the data up there. That data is hot off the press because we just finished up our first exploration day on the 23rd, and we decided to do one right before spring break. So, you know, a good timing on that one, last day before spring break. But if you're in Olathe and you want to come by Santa Fe Trail and you want to see exploration days, that'll be this Friday, so you can see the next ones that we're doing. So I know we're kind of short on time, but our next phase is looking at what kind of materials, and actually one of the big things that we want to do is we want to pilot a schedule in May that will actually mirror what it will look like in August. So we don't want to wait till August. We want to actually start doing some of these things and start in May. So, this is not without its challenges. I'm just going to be totally honest with you. I think Scott said something pretty powerful the other day to me. He said, the first one through the wall, it gets is the most bloodied, right? Or something to that effect. So, and it really, that's true. This is not easy, but our staff at Santa Fe Trail has been wonderful. It's a staff that is foundations built on relationships with students anyway, and so a lot of these things were very, very natural to happen. So I'll just quickly will talk about some of these positives and the challenges. We, exploring the needed redesign in our current system and opening the doors for other schools. So we already talked about that. Us being kind of on the forefront, we get to determine a little bit more about what happens. One of the kind of unintended consequences has been seeing other teachers step into leadership roles that have not maybe been asked or haven't done it before. And that's been great. We built a lot more leadership capacity within our building. We've completed two school-wide pilots already, which is a huge undertaking in a large school. Increase in student choice. We've had the capacity to truly look at student needs. One of the ways that we had student input is we had a student forum at the beginning of the year where we had some of our student leaders in 8th grade have questions, and students rotated around and gave their feedback, and we looked at that feedback as well. I think just for the teachers, just being allowed to take risks, they've always had that permission, but now they really have that permission to kind of say, hey, redesign your classroom. One of the biggest things that I keep pushing for is we do an amazing job already at Santa Fe Trail teaching, but we want our classes to look different next year, because true redesign happens in what's happening in that classroom on a daily basis. So how is it going to look different next year than what it does this year, even though we're already doing great things, but how is it going to look different next year? Challenges. One of the challenges that we've had is we already had a very, very strong building level team, which is wonderful. It's a good problem to have when you have that many leaders in your building. But when you also have redesign going on at the same time, it's almost like you have two kind of, I don't want to say maybe the word competing, but you have two visions kind of going on the same time. And how do you bring all that together? And that is one thing that we are continuing to work on. this is a short time frame if you take this on. This is a year. I mean, it goes really, really fast, and it is moving, and you have to have a staff, and you have to be very, very flexible. We are in a big district of 30,000 students. We already have a lot of wonderful initiatives that we're doing. You know, we're one part of that district. Redesign is one part of that. So sometimes in a smaller district, maybe you can be a little bit more nimble because you're not in a larger district with a larger system. So these are just some of the challenges that we've had as well. And I'm not sure where we're at on time. Are we probably over? We're over. Yeah, this always happens. I do this every single time. We will be around here if you have any questions or comments or anything like that. And like I said, we will continue to answer questions on today's meet. So thank you very much.